Hello everyone, this is Dr. Varsha Deshpande, and in this video we are going to take a look at the concept of state under Article 12 of the Constitution of India. Now, in an earlier video where I spoke about the concept of fundamental rights, I emphatically said in that video that one of the illuminating characteristics of fundamental rights is that these rights are available only against the state as a matter of general principle. Now, our whole chapter on fundamental rights within the text of the Constitution is contained in Part 3 of the Constitution. Now, this Part 3 commences with Article 12, but let's remember that this opening article in the text of Part 3 does not really confer any fundamental rights on us. So, Article 12, which is the opening article in Part 3 dedicated to fundamental rights, if it doesn't give us a right, what does it exactly do? Now, let's remember that this opening article, which is Article 12, engages into the enterprise of defining the word state. So, if you look at the text of Article 12 of the Constitution, it is defining the concept of state for us. So, why do we really need to define state? We need to define state because fundamental rights being available only against the state, we need to know with clarity what are the bodies that fall within the umbrella of the word state. And that's why Article 12 presents us with a definition of state. So, in effect, what is Article 12 trying to do? Article 12 tries to tell us who are the bodies, which are the institutions and authorities against whom the limiting force of fundamental rights can operate. Now, let's understand one thing at the very beginning, that when we brought the Constitution of India into force, there was a significant shift in our philosophy. Now, what was that shift? When we were governed by the Government of India Act of 1935, the whole concept of governance under the 35 Act, it was very government-centric. It was power-centric, authority-centric model of governance. But from that, when we shifted to the Constitution of India, our own homegrown constitution as the prime document of governance within this country, we brought about a shift in this philosophy. So this Constitution of 1950 doesn't present us with only a government-centric model of governance. What it importantly additionally does is, it brings an individual into focus. And that's why under this Constitution, we do not come across a unilateral model of governance, but this is a model of governance where you are adopting a rights-based approach for individuals. You're placing into the hands of individuals these cardinal and important fundamental rights which they can enforce against the state, which they can use as legitimate weapons against the misuse or abuse of power by the state. And that's precisely the reason why when we say that individuals can enforce these rights against the state, we basically need to know what is state, how do we conceptualize the idea of state, and that's precisely what Article 12 does. So, in this first part of the video dedicated to the definition of state under Article 12, let's begin by looking at the text of Article 12 of the Constitution of India. So, if we look at the text of Article 12, how does it define the notion of state? If you carefully browse through every word used in the definition, it says, in this part, unless the context otherwise requires, the state includes the Government of India, the Parliament of India, the government and legislatures of each of the states and all local or other authorities within the territory of India or under the control of the government of India. Now that's the literal text of Article 12. Let's try to understand in detail what do these words in this text signify. To begin with, let's see how does the definition open. The definition opens by using the words in this part, and this part means part 3, and part 3 means fundamental rights. So the first point we need to inform ourselves is that this definition that's given in the text of Article 12 is a definition of state basically for purposes of fundamental rights only. Then if you move ahead, it says in this part, unless the context otherwise requires, the state includes. Now this is very important for us to bear in mind, because when Article 12 is defining the word state, it doesn't define by telling us the state means so and so. What does it tell us? It says the state includes so and so. So Article 12 adopts the tool of an inclusive definition for defining the concept of state to us. Now, what is the significance of saying that, this is an inclusive definition? Let's remember when we talk about an inclusive definition, it is a pointer to the fact that this definition is elastic, it is flexible, it is capable of including more things within the scope of the word state than what have been specifically mentioned in the text of Article 12. So, this is a pointer to tell us that the founders of the Constitution did not want to cement the idea of state revolving around those institutions which they have specifically mentioned within Article 12 only. They left the scope, the flexibility of being able to incorporate more bodies, of being able to include more number of bodies within this definition wherever the context so requires. And that's the reason why the definition says, unless the context otherwise requires, the state includes. It's giving us an inclusive definition and not an exhaustive definition. That's the second aspect of this definition that we need to keep in mind. Then if we go ahead and look at what are the institutions that are really included specifically by the text within this definition. It says the state includes the government of India, means the executive at the center. The Parliament of India means the legislature at the center. The government of the state, signifying executive at the level of the state, because we are a federal country. It includes legislature, executive at the center, executive at the state, legislature of the state, and ahead of that it says all local bodies. That means, there we are bringing in the third level or the third tier of our federation within the bracket of the word state. So all local bodies, meaning your municipalities, your panchayats, your zilla parishads, all those authorities at the local level that are given the power to frame rules. Okay, so all local authorities at the third tier of our federation are a part of the definition of state, meaning that they are also subject to the limiting force of fundamental rights. And ahead of that, it says all local or other authorities within the territory of India or under the control of the government of India. So all other authorities which are either territorially inside India or other authorities which may be territorially outside India but nonetheless subject to the control of the government of India. So here a classic example of these kind of authorities are our diplomatic staff outside India. So territorially they are outside India, but they are nonetheless subject to the control of the Indian government, and that's why they are also a part of state under Article 12. So if you look at the way Article 12 is structured, it tries to include all these kind of governmental bodies within the scope of the word state. The present Article 12 was draft Article 7, which was discussed on the floor of the Constituent Assembly. And if one looks back into the pages of the Constituent Assembly debates, we'll realize that at that time, Dr. Ambedkar very emphatically made this point that, when we're coining the definition of the word state, we do not want to limit its scope only to the central and the state governments, but we also want the definition to include the local bodies, the municipal boards, the local boards that have the power under law to make rules, bylaws, and regulations and stuff like that. So all these kind of bodies are made a part of the definition of state under Article 12. So, in this discussion, we've tried to take a look at textually what does a definition of state under Article 12 look like, what does the text connote to us, and what are the important points we need to remember about the way Article 12 endeavors to define the word state. However, if we look at this definition carefully, we'd realize that there are two questions that by and large remain unanswered and which have created some kind of a problem before the courts of law. What are these two questions? Question number one that is raised here under is, how do we understand the words other authorities used in the text of Article 12? Because, it's not clear when you say other authorities, what are the kind of authorities that are included within the scope of these words is largely unclear, and which has created some kind of a problem before the courts, and the courts have had to engage into the process of interpreting what these words really mean. So this is one unanswered question that we need to look at and search for the ways in which this question has been attempted to be answered by the courts on a case-to-case basis. The second question that we need to look into is judiciary, the third branch or the third pillar of the government, is judiciary a part of state under Article 12? Because if we look at the textual definition of the word state, let's remember it categorically and expressly includes the legislative and the executive branches of the state, but the definition remains silent on the position of the judiciary. So it neither expressly includes the judiciary nor expressly excludes the judiciary. So is judiciary a part of state under Article 12 for purposes of fundamental rights is the second question that we need to answer. We'll try and attempt to answer both these questions in the subsequent parts of these videos that are dedicated to the topic of the definition of state under Article 12. But I hope at the textual level, I have been able to bring home to you the key points that we need to remember about the way Article 12 defines the concept of state. Thank you very much for watching this video, and please do let me know in the comments section how do you like this video. Thank you very much.
For more such informative topics on constitutional law, please like this video and subscribe our channel.